Luke, can you hear us okay?
Sound great. Thanks, Liz.
Yep. I call the Meridian City Council work session to order. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. We will begin this work session meeting with roll call attendance. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Councilwoman Strader. Councilman Cavanagh?
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts? Here. Councilman Taylor? Councilman Overton?
Here.
Councilman Whitlock?
Here.
Councilwoman Strader?
Here. Okay, thank you. And next up, we have adoption of the agenda.
Council Vice President, there are no changes to the agenda this evening. I move that we approve the agenda as published.
Thank you. Councilman Overton, do we have a second? Okay, fantastic. We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Council Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
move that we approve the consent agenda for the Council Vice President to sign and the clerk to attest.
Second.
Okay, fantastic. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it, and the consent agenda is approved. We do not have any items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll go ahead and start into our department commission reports. First up, item 13 is the Lakeview Golf Course fees discussion, and we will recognize Garrett White.
Councilwoman Strader and Council, thanks for having me tonight. I'm here to talk to you about proposed golf fees for next year. The golf course is looking beautiful out there, so I got to give Ryan, who's in the audience right now, him and Kevin some kudos out there. If you've had the opportunity to drive the golf course with him a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. This looks so good and so good out there. But tonight, really what I'm looking for from you is really just a discussion or feedback, if there is any, and or head nods or thumbs up type of thing. Once we discuss these, the game plan is to post these and then come back in a few weeks for a public hearing. So this is really just the beginning of the process and just kind of getting that discussion going with you guys. This year, the methodology behind the adjustments were basically based on inflationary trends and competitive pricing. The target was about 4% increase across the board through all of our fees. Some of the bullet points that we have on there was really just to for simplicity, route them to the nearest whole dollar after tax. If they come up there to pay with cash, we're not dealing with coins and stuff like that at their counter. Private cart trail fees gets an increase, different methodology on that. The break-even point is about 41 for the unlimited single person golfer that go out there. So we kind of made that same methodology and same mathematical equation to come up with that fee this year as well. Annual passes up 4% through that as well. And then just kind of did the basic senior and military discount out there. So that's what we wanted to go through and kind of get your guys' feedback on. We did look at doing this as comparables to the Treasure Valley and different golf courses around. And the increase puts us at really right at the average of everything else. So we're not the most expensive, not the least expensive, but right in the middle. So with that feedback, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Council, are there any questions?
Council Vice President.
Yes, Councilman Overton.
Garrett, and to both of you, I want to give you a huge kudos once again. I had the opportunity to help with the setup of one of the golf tournaments this summer a couple of months ago. And in so doing that, got to drive early in the morning every hole in the golf course. And, you know, you can go to the clubhouse, you can go to the driving range, and you can see how beautiful the golf course looks. But when you get to see all 18 holes and how it looks the same all the way throughout, it's impressive that we've done such a great job and the course looks so good. And I know the history of our city, and when we ask for money, we've always been an extremely conservative and fiscally, we don't ask for much. We try to ask for just enough money to make it continue to work. And I look at these fee increases that you're requesting, and I know that we're just trying to keep up with our costs and provide to the public what they expect out of us and do it in the most fiscally responsible manner. And I appreciate you bringing forward these fees. We need to continue to work towards cost recovery, but I appreciate the way that you bring these forward for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, Councilman Overton.
Council Vice President Strader.
Council President Cavanagh, go ahead.
Thank you. Garrett, I want to make sure that I heard this at the Parks tour the other night. The golf course, not taking into account obviously the significant capital infrastructure investment, but the golf course continues to operate now in the black when you don't factor in the cost of the kind of the large scale capital improvements. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Again, to echo Councilmember Overton's comments, to operate a great facility, to have it looking great, running great, operating great is really a testament to our whole parks team. So thanks for reinforcing that point, and thanks for a job well done.
Thank you for the comments and thanks for going on the tour. It's fun. And again, Ryan and Kevin get all the kudos. Those guys do just a great job, and his staff. The staff out there is always pleasant and awesome. So
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Vice President. Garrett, Ryan, can't say enough about what a great job and how wonderful the golf course looks. It's been a long road, I know, for you guys from, when we started with the change in the water, actually started to get the golf course back so that Meridian was in control of our own property. And so it's been quite the journey, but well done.
Yeah.
Very, very well done. And so, of course, I agree with the fees going up. We do need to do our best to recoup the costs. So thank you.
no, thank you.
Madam Vice President Strader.
Councilman Whitlock. Yes, go ahead.
Garrett, like Council President Kavanagh, I appreciated the tour last week and the opportunity to be out on the site. It's beautiful. The statistics of how much grass seed you've laid this past year, it's paying off. The grass has sprouted. It's green. It's beautiful. But for me, probably the best image last week was looking at all the high school kids out there. We had a golf team from one of the high schools. Literally, they were touching the grass, getting in touch with the grass, no shoes, walking out on the putting green. And, I thought about that later that night, and I thought, here's kids in our community that are in touch with a wholesome sport and a wholesome activity, and we're providing that opportunity. And it was really an incredible image. They're learning a lifelong sport and developing a love for that right here in our community. So that image stayed with me that night and throughout the week. And I just want to commend you for having an amenity like that in our community that our youth and some of us older people can enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. And then again, that's Ryan Roberts. He promotes our youth program so well, and he does such a good job at it. Him and his crew out there, they're just very welcoming and approachable, and the kids love it. So no, thank you for those comments. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just add, appreciate all that you're doing on the golf course, especially to try to make it as self-sustaining as possible. I think that's important. I understand we don't like fees going up, but it's kind of the cost of doing business and part of our cost recovery model. Do you feel like you have the right feedback from us, Garrett? Do you want to see some thumbs up from people that the fees are tracking generally?
I feel like I've gotten great feedback. So I think my plan would be to post these and then come back in a few weeks for public hearing. And at that point, we can discuss more stuff that we need to. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, great. Next up is item 14, the Ada County Highway District Impact Fee Presentation and Discussion, which will be led by Caleb Hood and Justin Lucas.
Council Vice President Strader. I actually don't have too much of an intro as Justin comes forward, but I did want to take a minute before he explains their process for developing their impact fees and the capital improvements plan. And just thank him first for being here today, but also last Tuesday for hanging out with us for a few hours. And then I also wanted to call to your attention, we do have the Transportation Commission Chair, Walter Steed, also in the audience, who is the city's representative on ACHD's CICAC. So Capital Improvement Citizen Advisory Committee. So Mr. Steed was, when I told him this was happening, he was generous enough to give us his time. So he's got the perspective and has sort of been part of the process at ACHD that Justin is going to tell you more about as I get his presentation up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, I'll go ahead and get started. For the record, my name is Justin Lucas. I'm the Chief of Operations and Infrastructure at the Ada County Highway District. It's really a pleasure to be with you here today to discuss ACHD's capital improvements plan and our impact fee program. There's a lot of history in this program, and this plan has been under development for over a year now. And so it's something we do every 4 years, and we'll do it 4 years from now as we continue to grow as a region. This plan allows us to essentially charge developers to pay for the costs of widening roads that are associated with growth. Essentially, that's what it does. I know the city has impact fee programs associated with other services, and it's not uncommon for regions or cities or counties to have a transportation impact fee. So this is, work session meant to be conversational. If you have any questions as I go, please feel free to just interrupt me and I'll do my best to answer the questions. No reason to wait till the end. Hopefully this can, I'm here to listen to feedback. And then if the city chooses to take any formal action or provide formal feedback, I'm sure your staff will work with you on that. Let's see here. There we go. So as I mentioned, this was a pretty big process for us. We are working with a consulting firm, Kittleson and Associates, who is navigating through this with us. They're a transportation consulting firm that specializes in regional transportation analysis, including model analysis, growth projections, and projecting traffic into the future to determine what needs we have into the future. It's kind of a crystal ball sometimes, but we use demographics that come from Compass, our regional transportation agency. ACHD does not develop its own demographic set. That is all run through Compass, which all of our communities participate in, including the city of Meridian. So we did a best practice review. We went through some significant project development analysis. Most recently, we developed project cost analysis, and we're right now in the kind of final phases of our draft. And I wanted to highlight two main things today as part of this draft that are changes, I would say, from previous drafts of our capital improvements plan. The first one is service area. As we develop a plan under state code, which governs the process for this, ACHD has to identify a service area for the fees that we collect. Since 2012, ACHD has had a single service area. So fees collected through the development process anywhere in the county could be spent at the direction of the ACHD Commission anywhere in the county. The single service area is supported by the data, which essentially shows that over 90% of trips within Ada County stay within Ada County. As part of this analysis, the ACHD Commission, including feedback from the Capital Investment Citizens Advisory Committee, asked us to look at different service area options, which we did. There were a few different ones we looked at, 3 primary. One was the single service area, to continue with that model. The other was what I'm showing to you on the screen today, which happens to be the current draft is being based on this at the commission's direction. The third one was an overlay zone that kind of primarily captured a portion of kind of the greater downtown Boise area. The thing about service areas is they have to be developed based on sound engineering and transportation principles. You can't just draw the lines how you want. That's not how it works under Idaho code. You have to be able to show why the service areas are distinct based on the travel patterns and characteristics of the service area. So this service area in front of you today has a west and an east. It's essentially a 2 service area model. So fees collected in the west are spent on projects in the west. Fees collected in the east are spent on projects in the east. Now, when you do this, though, you can have different impact fees in the different service areas, and that is a result of the 2 service area model is essentially higher impact fees in the western service area and lower impact fees in the eastern service area. The reason behind that is the number of projects in those 2 areas. There are a lot more projects in the western service area than there are in the eastern service area. So once again, the impact fee calculation is essentially a math problem developed based on travel characteristics and project cost. The higher, the more amount of projects, the more projects you want to get done, the higher the fee, essentially, which is why there's a discrepancy there. So I'll pause there, see if you have any questions about service areas. The commission essentially gave us direction to move forward with the 2 service areas for the draft. They have not made their final decision. I'm presenting this today to allow for the city to understand that we're making a change and to certainly take any questions you may have, and encourage you to reach out to the commission formally if you have any concerns with this paradigm.
Okay.
Madam Vice President,
Yes, Councilman Whitlock.
just a quick question. What is the difference between the two? Or you probably have that in your slide.
Here we go.
Okay.
Let's jump right into it. You can see we have total project costs, total impact fee eligible costs. Those are the 2 top line items there. Not all aspects of a project by state law are impact fee eligible. So that's why there's those two separate rows there. But you can see this is just using a representative sample of the impact fees. A single family home is a relatively easy one to understand. For one single family home in the Western service area, the resultant impact fee would be $8,929. In the Eastern service area, it's $5,348. I can anticipate a question of what is it today? It's a little under $4,000 today, which for a single service area, so there is no change. So it's a relatively substantial increase that we're proposing. There's some reasons behind that, which I can go into. Also, the office and shopping center, you can see the differences there, which are also increases about the same scale of magnitude as the single family home.
Councilman Overton.
Justin, I understand the reason for the split this year, but it would sure be nice, and I realize you're not looking for our approval. This is just a discussion with us. But it would sure be nice to not just see the west and the east service areas, but actually to see what this would look like if it was still all one area and what those fees would look like across the entire Ada County.
Madam President, Councilman Overton, we can provide that information to staff, and I can look back at Megan. We have the calculations. I'm going to give you a close estimate today. Don't quote me on it, but essentially, if you take kind of the average of the two, it's in that like $7,000 range for a single family home if we go to if we continue with the single service area. So you're kind of splitting the difference, and that's based on just taking all the project costs and allocating them across one single service area. So it's still what I would consider a significant increase, but it's not. There is no discrepancy if you have just the one service area.
Madam Vice
Any
President?
Questions? Yes, Council President Cavanagh.
Justin, in your opening comments, you remarked that the commission made a shift in, I think you said 2012. What was the basis for the commission making the shift in 2012?
Councilman Cavanagh, thanks for that question. Going back to 2012, I believe at that time, before then, the commission had we had 4 service areas within our county pre-2012. At that time, based on the engineering data and the analysis that we performed, we realized that the single service area was supported by the data. It also, when you have a single service area, provides more flexibility to do larger projects when you don't constrain it by service area. Because you can imagine, let's say there's a large project in the eastern service area, which is collecting a lower fee, and the development isn't maybe moving as rapidly as anticipated. You could find yourself in a position where you have a desire to do a project, but do not have the revenue to do that project when you have a service area model with multiple service areas. And that happened to ACHD under the multiple service areas scenario before. I'm not saying that will happen again. I'm just saying that was one of the probably primary reasons for the single service area was flexibility to allow the commission who directs the funds to direct those funds anywhere in the county where they had the most benefit based on the budgetary and needs of the transportation system. The other reason at that time was I think it's safe to say feedback from the development community that it was confusing to the developers across Ada County why they were paying one fee in one area and another fee in a different area. That was feedback the commission received. I think at that time they were sensitive to that feedback and used that as part of their decision-making process to go to the single service area. Regardless of that, the service areas have to be justified by sound engineering and planning principles. The single service area still, we believe, meets that criteria. Along with this two service area model, we think we can get there based on our work with the consultant. Does that answer your question, Councilman?
Yeah, Madam Vice President, it certainly does, Justin. Although when I hear your explanation, I feel like some of the problems that the commission looked to solve 13 years ago is kind of being reinvited back in. Lack of consistency, dollars landing in one place, maybe projects not following. So I guess I'm just trying to understand kind of what changed and why kind of going back to a model that you used to do is the right decision today when you spent so much time and analysis 12 years ago to essentially make a switch.
Council President, Councilman Cavanagh, I think it's a fair question. I think that's the type of feedback that would be valuable for our commissioners to hear. Staff, we respond to, our commissioners and try to provide them with options, and then they ultimately provide us with direction. I think staff with the consultant provided 3 viable service area scenarios to the commissioners. We did our best to show the pros and cons. I think if there was one theme that has come out through the conversations, it's a sense of fairness that has been communicated by some citizens and some jurisdictions to our commissioners, feeling that it's not fair for fees to be collected in one place to be spent far away from that place. That's probably the primary driver for the multiple service area scenario conversation that we've had going through this. Ultimately, service areas it's a policy decision.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here sharing that early on in the process, so you're aware this would change. And someone doing a development in Southeast Boise would have a different fee than someone doing a development in Northwest Meridian.
Madam Vice President, just maybe one more question, and then I'll yield the rest of my time.
Go ahead.
Justin, can you talk a little bit about the mechanism or the basis to determine these fees? Right, when I see in the West Service area close to $9,000 for a single family unit, 3 times that is essentially what you're charging for commercial retail. And I'm just trying to understand the methodology that you use to establish what the fee amount is. It appears to me that it's heavily lopsided on homeowners. And there may be a basis for that, although I think of some of our retail places that are large drivers of traffic, you would think that there was maybe a more proportional share of those impact fees. So if you could walk me through the basis and methodology that the district used to determine these.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Cavanagh, Council President. So it's essentially a function of trip generation that is the primary driver when it comes to the different land use types of the fee. I do want to clarify that the shopping center fee is per 1,000 square feet. So if a Costco comes in, it's not paying $18,000 as its impact fee in the city of Meridian. It would be the square footage of that Costco per 1,000 of those square feet times the $18,000. So that's just a clarifying point. With a single family home, it's essentially, no matter what size the home is, it's a single family home and it pays one fee. So I do want to make that distinction that, for example, we have received fees on the commercial side in the millions of dollars this year from large developments like Micron, where they're doing massive square footage. It's a huge employment generator. And St. Luke's is another example downtown, and other large developments. They can pay very substantial fees, just straight dollar amounts. So that would be my first caveat there. And then the other thing, as I was mentioning, is that the fees are just based on trip generation. So every land use type, and I did include this in your packet, there's a whole laundry list of different land use types, and we use that laundry list essentially using trip generation from the Highway Capacity Manual, which is a nationally recognized and created engineering tool that helps us know, in general, on average, this is how many trips a daycare generates. This is how many trips a fast casual restaurant generates. This is how many trips this generates. And as you can imagine, we have to have a sense of kind of fairness where one restaurant comes in and we just don't say, well, you're this type of restaurant, and because you serve this type of food, you're going to get this fee. It doesn't work like that. It's based on these national standards. So that's kind of my response to that. The other major factors that drive the fee are the projects overall that we need to do to accommodate all this growth in our county projected over the next 20 years. And that's probably the largest driver. Getting into why the fees have changed so much, we haven't done a substantial review of our cost estimates within our CIP since before COVID. And all of us, I think, can recognize that inflation since 2019, 2020 has been not only an issue locally, but an issue nationally. And when we did this comprehensive review with this update, the project costs for both construction and right-of-way acquisition were substantial. And that is probably, if there was one variable that is driving this fee, it's the cost of constructing the projects. Does that help answer your question, Councilman?
It does. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask if our Transportation Commission Chair Steed would like to come and say a few words if he had any input. We definitely value the opinion of our Transportation Commission and commissioners, and I think would love to hear what the interaction has been and if you have any thoughts about what all this would mean.
Thank you, Madam Council. The Transportation Commission has not discussed this at this point. As was said, it went through the CICAC. It came down 4-3 for a single. One small community represented in the CICAC wanted a single for the reason that Justin's already explained, the fairness of my money, your money. The others, a couple of them felt that they had not been on the CICAC long enough to fully understand it. I'm not sure being on a long time will help anybody fully understand it. A personal comment, when I was on the city council in Moscow for 10 years, I was firmly against these fees because we had maybe one 10-house subdivision a year. And my feeling was that these would slow even that little bit down. Here, I'm not sure this fee increase will slow anything down. So there's that element as well.
Great, thank you so much. That was very helpful. Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Steed? Okay, I don't either. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate your input. Justin, I had a question for you. What would this mean for the 5-year work plan if it were to become effective?
Thank you, Council President, members of the council. So with a higher fee, if all other things being equal, which means the rate of development stays the same. Because if development slows down, it doesn't matter how high the fee is. We don't collect the fees if there's no houses being built. So assuming things remain the same, ACHD would see a pretty substantial increase in its impact fee collections annually. Impact fees by law have to be spent on capital improvements that are identified in our capital improvements plan, which are essentially arterial roadway widening projects and intersection projects. So following that logic, if we have more fee collections and those fees are able to be spread out to support more projects, ACHD's is by law essentially has to spend those fees on more projects. So I think one logical conclusion of this, and my long-winded way of saying this, is, the idea is that more fees would lead to more construction of major arterial projects to support the growth in our county.
Thanks. That makes sense. That is logical. But I think it would be helpful if we had maybe a sense of your timeline and kind of what your process looks like. And then just a minor correction on the city council vice president. Council President Kavanagh has the illustrious title of being our council president. I'm just filling in since he's remote tonight.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Council Vice President.
Yes, go ahead.
Justin, are these fees based on, we just submitted our letter on a 5-year work plan. Do I understand that these fees that we're looking at now that you're adopting are based on more of a 20-year plan?
Yeah, Council Vice President, Councilman Overton, absolutely. The 5-year plan is connected to our capital improvements plan as an implementation tool related to the capital improvements plan. But the capital improvements plan is a standalone document that has a 20-year kind of vision included in it. And what it does is it does not outline all projects that ACHD is going to work on. It outlines the arterial projects, the regional essential projects, and the major intersection projects that are eligible for impact fees. And that is defined by state law. We're not able to collect impact fees, for example, to retrofit a sidewalk into a neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks today. That's not an impact fee eligible expense that we're able to collect fees on or expend fees on. These fees essentially, by state law, have to be spent on the clear nexus of growth and essentially transportation impacts on the arterial network. So roadway widening and intersection widening. So it's not a comprehensive 20-year plan, but when it comes to the expensive projects, it's got them all in there. And some of them are extremely expensive. We're approaching a period, and it's hard for me to say this in my career, never thought I would, but we're looking at projects due to increased costs that are over $20 million. Some of our projects, these are large projects, but they may be over $100 million. For example, the widening of Linder Road between Chinden and Highway 44. There's multiple bridges, multiple river crossings. It's an extremely environmentally sensitive project. A project like that, based on our most current estimates, is about $100 million. And if you do the math and we're collecting, let's say in a great year, which this year is probably the largest collections we've ever had, is $30 million in impact fees. It's going to take us a while with all the needs to build a project like that even if we're collecting 30 million a year, which is a very high year for us, the highest we've ever had. So the needs are substantial. You can see the needs are in the billions of dollars of projects that are identified as needed within 20 years.
Council Vice President.
Yes.
Quick follow-up, Justin. I guess one of the things that you can probably explain to me is when we look at this 20-year capital improvement, you're basing the fees off what you guys think you're looking at for 20 years. And in my understanding early on, and I'm to try to put you on the spot, is that Black Cat Road does not exist on that 20-year plan. If we're looking at a 5-year plan, do we really get to make effective changes on the 5-year plan as it comes in front of us if you've already identified all these on the 20-year plan coming forward? Can we really make effective change if we see the needs of our city coming forward? Or when you do this based on your 20-year plan, are you kind of telling us this is the roadway and this is where we're going and thank you for your input?
Council Vice President, Councilman Overton, you know, I appreciate that question. I think it's a good one. I would put it this way. By designating these projects in our 20-year plan, we're essentially saying this is what our transportation model and our needs analysis shows us that we need within 20 years. The 5-year plan essentially is the tool that we use to prioritize those 20-year needs. So I would say that the city has especially moving forward under our current director's leadership, has a clear ability to identify priorities, and it's ACHD's intention to work on those priorities. Now, I can't say we're going to get it all done, next year, but for example, if the city has a priority of 1 or 2 or 3, that project, it's our intention, should be moving forward within our 5-year plan. I think there's always going to be some caveats and some qualifiers to a statement like that, but what I can tell you is that is the intention that we have. For example, I think if you looked at your top 3 priorities on your most current list, those should and would be moving forward in our plan. Now, are there other important projects where there may be some congestion that fall outside of that top 3 or 4 or 5 priorities? Sure there are, much like there are in most communities across the United States. And our intention is, as we knock out those top priorities and those start to ramp up the list, that we would focus in those areas. That's what we're trying to do. I think the Linder Road overpass is probably a good example of that, a very expensive project where I do not want to in any way diminish the city's contributions to that project, which I think helped move it forward, state contributions to that project through the award of a grant, which helped move it forward. So I think high priority projects tend to have energy behind them and tend to move forward. If the city is, I would say this, if the city is consistently asking for it, and that hasn't always been the case with all of our community partners. If the number 1 priority is changing every year and you kind of get these fits and starts, that certainly has an impact on the project process.
Madam Vice President.
Yes.
Justin, can I rephrase maybe what Councilman Overton asked and a little bit different? We'll use Black Cat or even McMillan. That's been talked about too. If the CIP has it as a 3-lane roadway, but the city's looking for it to potentially be 5, what are the impacts of your CIP identifying as one thing, same roadway section, but different cross section? How does that play into your answer that you just gave about our priorities?
I think it's a really good question, and this goes into some of the weeds of the CIP. As I said, the CIP is based on transportation modeling, and it's based on demographic data, and it's based on trip projections into the future. And there are times when the trip projections on a certain corridor do not reach the threshold of the ultimate vision that a city or even ACHD may have for that corridor. I think in this specific CIP, Black Cat Road is a really good example where in previous CIPs, that road has triggered a need for 5-lane widening. In this CIP, through the analysis, it didn't trigger that need. And remember, this isn't ACHD behind the scenes secretly hoping Black Cat doesn't go to 5 lanes. It doesn't work like that. It's essentially a countywide model and a trip generation that just says it's either tripping the threshold or it's not based on this 20-year projection. Black Cat's interesting, and it was likely significantly impacted by the inclusion and the construction of Highway 16. We anticipate Highway 16 will have some impacts on traffic along parallel corridors within, let's say, 2 or 3 miles of that corridor. Even 10 Mile Road is likely to see some impact from Highway 16. 10 miles so busy that even if you drive it every day, you may not notice because it still will likely be congested, especially at the peak hour. But people traveling to Emmett Gem County and other areas, Caldwell and other areas in the north western part of our Treasure Valley, they'll be using Highway 16 where they may be using 10 mile today. And it's not a small amount of people that make those trips. So I use that as an example to say, yes, that does happen. Does that impact ACHD's emphasis on a corridor? I would say that's probably fair. And if the city really were to prioritize Black Cat Road as its #1 priority under these circumstances, I think it'd be good to have a conversation about why the city's, so excited about Black Cat. But let's say we were going to go do a project on Black Cat and it should 3 lanes in our CIP. We would likely build it at 5 lanes because our master street map, our long-term vision shows it as a 5-lane road. And the reason we would do that is because we know that even long-term, this is just 20 years, beyond 20 years, I think there's been a general agreement that these section line arterials, should be 5 lanes within the city of Meridian. That has been brought forward by Meridian and it's been accepted by the ACHD Commission. So what would happen in that situation is the impact fees collected would only be able to pay for the segment of Black Cat up to 3 lanes, and then it would have to be non-impact fees that were to cover the difference. That's essentially how it happens behind the scenes. That has happened on a few occasions through ACHD's previous projects. Not all that often, but it has happened on occasion. So that's kind of how it works. The CIP in and of itself is not it's primarily a tool to lay out the needs over 20 years as defined by the model and in compliance with state law so that we can collect impact fees. It is not a master vision of what every single road is going to be in its ultimate configuration. If that helps or makes sense.
Okay. And then I had asked a question previously just about timing, process. You're looking for input from us, I guess, on anything specifically, it would be good to know. But yeah, if you want to walk us through those items.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see here if I've got a next steps. So where we are right now is we're in the draft development stage. We'll be bringing the draft to our commissioners with this similar information. They've gotten a lot of updates, obviously, later this month in September. So once we have that, we're actually going to publish a formal draft for formal review by the public and our partners. We wanted to offer these presentations so you had kind of a preview of what's coming, so you weren't caught off guard by anything. That's our intention. So I would say during that, over the September and October timeframe, if the city wanted to weigh in on some of those bigger issues, I think that would be the ideal time to do that. I think city input on the service areas is very important for our commissioners to hear one way or the other on the 2 service area idea. I think it's very important. And I think if there's any concern by the city related to the increase in fee, it's also fair. There's the way you decrease the fee, you just remove projects from the plan. That's essentially the way to decrease the fee, is you say, we understand they're needed, but we're just saying we're not going to build them, which brings the fee down. And so I think the plan is aggressive. There's a lot of projects in there, but that's kind of the framework that we're in right now. So I say those are probably the 2 primary areas where feedback from the city would be most impactful. And then if there's any other questions related to projects, I think we're glad to take any and all feedback related to that.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's helpful. I'm sure that we might have some comments once we have a chance to dig into the service areas, especially. I think there's a fair amount of analysis that actually we should put into that. I just had one more question, and then I'll check with my fellow council what other questions they might have to round us out. But is it accurate to say that the impact fees overall for our area are approximately doubling? Is that about right?
I think it may be even a little more than that, but yeah, it's more than double, is an accurate assessment. It's a pretty significant change. As I tried to lay out some of the reasons for that today, but yes, it is a significant change.
Okay, it sounds like a pretty big deal. With that, I'll just check. Does anyone have any final questions or comments? Okay, all right. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will head into item 15, the fiscal year 2026 citywide fee update, and recognize Jenny Fields.
Good evening, members of the council. I think my fellow teammate is pulling up our presentation. So as they're doing that, I'm gonna maybe kick us off. We're gonna continue the fee theme tonight by updating you guys on our fiscal year 2026 fee update for the citywide. Can I navigate? Thank you. Okay, agenda tonight. So the purpose of our today's presentation is that we're going to provide an overview of what we've done so far with our citywide fee update process. And then we're going to explain some cost recovery methodologies that we use, and then highlight what our goal is with our annual fee update. And then there are several departments that have fee adjustment proposals that ranges across multiple departments that you're going to see. Then we will round it up with our next steps. So tonight we're looking for feedback. In your packet and in your handout is the full list that includes multiple departments that we have handed out of our entire fee list for tonight. So our fee development process. So finance have worked with each department to determine the full cost recovery amount for each user fee. So we started with the cost analysis for each service. This is done by identifying what factors or cost components are used that impact each fee. There are such things like staff time. How much staff time does it require to process each of these fees? We also consider material costs. And then there's also some of them, like city clerk's department, have other agency costs associated with that fee that impacts the amount that goes into that fee. The results have been prepared and have been sent to Mayor for review and feedback. Mayor has provided departments their feedback, and that gets us to where we are currently at today. We have consolidated the entire list and is requesting council review and feedback tonight. So let's dig into our cost recovery methodology. Based on our policy, here's the list of our different cost recovery levels. So full cost recovery means that the fee is set to recover 100% of the cost that is providing that service. So we apply this method whenever appropriate. So we come up with the full costs first and then determine, hey, do we adjust it to have a lower percentage of cost recovery? This is to ensure that the user, since these are user fees, not the general taxpayer, pays for the service that primarily benefits the individual. So as council, you guys have the option to elect or to apply a different cost recovery based on either public benefit. It's totally up to you. But what we present is a full cost, what it costs the city to process that particular fee. So on your list, there are several departments that you'll see. On the far right, you'll see that the cost recovery method is indicated for each fee. Okay, so why are we doing this and what is the goal of all this, right? So many of these user fees have never been formally calculated, so they remain outdated. There are some departments that you'll see that they have not adjusted their fee for over a decade. So our goal is to perform this annual fee analysis every year. This will allow us to keep pace, like you've heard, inflation-driven increases, such as our personnel costs, our material costs. So I understand that the lists in front of you have giant or large percentage increases. That is because it hasn't been updated for between 8 to 10 years between these four departments. I'm going to go through each of these departments and give you some more detail. So it's going to follow the list that you have in front of you, starting with city clerks. So tonight, there are four departments that have fee adjustment proposals for your consideration. City clerks has a total of 34 fees. The last time the clerk's department have updated their fee is in a 2017 resolution. Some of the cost factors that we used to calculate these fees are, majority of it is staff time. And then there are some pass-through agency fees, such as from the state or the federal government. The next department that you'll see on the list is the fire department. The fire department's last update was back in 2019. They have a total of 17 fees. The primary cost factor that drives these fees is personnel time, staff time, personnel costs, I mean. Police has the least amount of fees. They have a total of 11 fees. Last time that the police department updated their fee schedule is back in 2017, so 8 years ago. They include cost calculations of staff time, so of personnel costs, as well as material costs in their fees. The biggest part of the list that you see tonight is from our planning department. Planning department has a total of 57 fees. This department haven't seen a fee update for over a decade. Cost factors primarily driven by personnel costs or staff time associated with those each costs. There are 29 fees that have a greater 5% increase to them. Okay, so I know this is a lot of data that's in front of you. You probably need some time to chew over, but our next step is we collect your guys' feedback tonight, maybe make some adjustments, and then our next step is to put it out on the paper and do a comment period via public hearing before we adopt. So this is just the beginning of our discussion process, and then these fees, we're not looking to be effective until 2026.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jenny,
Yeah.
for providing this information. Council, over to you for comments and questions.
So Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
you know what, without having the background story.
Yeah.
Any person that looks at these fees is going to think, what are we doing? I mean, some of these 100, 200, 300% increase. I think we're kind of guilty as a city that we didn't stay on top of these fees and do them every 2 years to keep them current so that when we did a fee increase, it would be a much more reasonable. But there's a cost associated with doing the study, I'm sure, to figure out what your increase is going to be. I know from my previous time working with the city that every time we do these cost recoveries and we do these fee increases, we're still trying to be as fiscally conservative as we can be. We're not trying to gouge the public. But I think we really need to tell the story, and putting fee increases with these numbers behind them. We need to tell that story crystal clear so people understand just how long it's been since we've done one and what's happened since that point in time. I'm supportive. I think we need to do it. I think we needed to do it a long time ago. And it wouldn't have been numbers as high as we see today.
Thank you, Councilman Overton.
Council Vice President, oh, go ahead, please.
Yes, please go ahead, Council President Kavanagh.
Thank you, Council Vice President Schrader. Jenny, I kind of maybe want to pick up where Councilmember Overton left off with maybe my first question, which is, we've been told for years that finances and the departments are working in conjunction to bring fee updates on an annual basis. So help me understand where the disconnect is occurring, that we're going 10, 12 years in some departments before these fees are getting updated. Just being very frank, this feels like a complete failure on the city's part. When I look at a fee that is going up 2,930%, it's because we haven't touched this in 12 years when we as council have been told we're going to be bringing these on an annual basis. So I'll start there and maybe ask why we haven't been doing this when the council's been told this is the plan.
Councilwoman Strader.
Please go ahead.
Councilman President Kavanagh, the delay came down to be frank, time and resources. This sat in our back burner while we tackled some urgent needs. It is by no means a oversight. It's just the lack of time and resources that we had.
Okay. I guess I'd like to get some larger understanding. It doesn't have to be right now as to
Okay.
what those time and resources that are getting in the way of doing this, because it's one thing that we're not. It's another thing when you tell the council that you're going to be doing these things and there isn't any communication to us that we aren't. I have real struggles that we're going to introduce a fee that goes up 3,000% because the city has failed to communicate appropriately. So that's some initial feedback. Second question is about cost recovery. So when I look at the Excel sheet that you've presented to us, if it says in that final column 100%, am I safe to assume that that means that as presented, that is 100% of the fee recovery?
Correct.
Okay, so when I look at then the clerk's office, a 34% fee recovery for a large scale special event. Why are we only choosing to recover 34% of that?
That's a great question. Could you pull up calculations? We have notes.
Just a moment. Council President Kavanagh, they're going to pull up a different presentation, I think, so we can all look at the spreadsheet that they provided earlier.
TUP. All the way to the right. So TUP, Ricardo, TUP. So go to the right where it says minimum cost.
Looks like it's line maybe 30,
Hmm.
31, 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the full costs I believe the full cost was $700. So it was decided, go ahead. The feedback that we received from Mayor was we are to elect to have a lower cost recovery because the full cost was substantially larger than the previous fee for TUP large scale events.
So it sounds like there was a decision, at least when this went to the mayor, you're saying that the mayor's direction was to try to recover a lower percentage of the cost recovery model on these particular TUP items. Is that accurate? Now we've got Director Lavoie, Council President Kavanagh, just FYI.
Yes, Council, you are correct with that last statement. We presented this to the mayor. Mayor reviews this, and we did a regional study on what the fees would be for a like-to-like TUP large scale, and our full cost recovery is much larger than the regional average. So it was decided to stay within the regional average and promote I think it's $250. Yeah, $250 fee increase rather than our full cost. We felt that the tolerance level for that $250 fee would be more acceptable than the $700 fee that we fully calculated so that we could be still marketably attractive to the regional customers.
Couple follow-ups, if I may.
Please go ahead.
So two-part question then, Mr. Lavoy. Is this 34.9% consistent with our cost recovery model? And two, is our fees so high, or our costs so high because of our costs? I guess, are the costs that the city of Meridian bears to process this type of a TUP the same level of cost that other municipalities are bearing? I guess essentially I'm asking, are other municipalities subsidizing the cost of this fee and we're choosing to follow suit?
Or members of the council, I'll start with the second question first. We do not know the methodologies or if any other agency in the valley does a full cost analysis on any other fees. We can only compare our fees to the other fees. We did not do a complete analysis of how they conduct or how they calculate any of their fees. So I apologize. I don't know the answer to that second question that you have. The methodology of 33%, again, it does fall within one of our 5 categories that we did provide to you. Again, we have the option to recover whatever percentage council and or mayor wishes to select. We calculate as a practice on our side of the fence 100% recovery. So you are informed of what it costs to run our business. You and the mayor can discuss and select a recovery percentage following our guidelines that we have in policy. So yes, I would say this does fall within policy. It is a recommendation to you for this particular line item itself.
But following the plan, sorry, Council Vice President Schrader, if I may. Yep. Following the plan, though, it should be at 100%. We've just made a subjective decision to lower it to remain competitive.
I would agree with that last statement, yes.
Okay. And then just maybe one additional follow-up then. In fire, daycare inspections, 50%. Any background and history as to why we're not recovering the full cost on this one?
Carly, will you pull up the calculation?
Maybe while we're pulling that up, I'll just preview what my question is going to be. What's the net fiscal impact for each of these departments if these fees were to be approved eventually? So that's just to preview a question.
Okay. Back to you on that one.
Sure. Go ahead.
Daycare. It is an Idaho code that we can only recoup $25.
Oh.
Okay. So this one is not a case of it being subjective. It is
It is
the cost to operate this service exceeds what we're able to charge based on Idaho State Code.
correct.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you. I think that concludes my questions.
Okay.
And to Madam Vice President Shader,
Please
to answer your
go ahead.
question about net fiscal impact, I don't have the answer tonight, but we can calculate and get back to you on that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. You know, one thing that I think all of us have been noticing with the pressure around our operating costs, and certainly we've seen a decrease in some construction activity, especially in the multifamily space. And so I think it's an opportunity for us and a challenge, to Council President Kavanaugh's point, that we haven't updated these fees in so long. I'm worried it's going to come as a big shock to people. But it does seem like it will help sort of support more through cycle resourcing of that function within the city. So I think understanding the fiscal impact from these fees for each department would help us to see the big picture.
Okay.
And then I strongly suspect that we'll have follow-up questions on the individual fees as well. It looks like this will be obviously a full public process. What would the next steps be for us, Jenny?
So the next steps is I collect your guys' input, do some adjustments based on your guys' your guidance. And then we draft a resolution. So this is anytime we have fees that are increasing from a certain percentage, I believe 5%, we have to do a formal public hearing. So we publish in the paper for 2 weeks, invite the public in for comment period, and then do a full-blown public hearing prior to adoption.
Okay. And at least for initial feedback or questions about any individual fees or even just broad categories of fees, what kind of timing would you like from us on that in terms of council getting back to you? Like 2 weeks? What works with your schedule you're anticipating?
So I think 2 weeks is fair. I'll leave it up to you guys. There's no urgency to, I mean, there is because we haven't updated these fees for so long, but our goal is to get these effective fiscal year 26. So there is a process where we have 2 weeks in the paper. So we are still a few weeks before adoption. So if we can collect all your guys' inputs, maybe a week or two, that would be super helpful.
Mhm.
And please direct them to me or Ricardo, and we will facilitate and get the subject matter experts if we can't answer them.
Okay, so for fellow council members, if everyone can try to provide any follow-up questions or feedback about the fees by September 30th to Jenny in the finance department, that would be super. Are there any other questions or comments from council members on this item? Okay, looks like that's what we've got. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, that brings us to our executive session action item. Do I have a motion?
Council Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
I move that we move into executive session per Idaho Code 742061D.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor, actually, I believe this is a vote. Let's go ahead and we'll do a roll call vote on that.
Thank you, Madam Vice President Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Okay, all ayes and the motion carries. We will now go into executive session.
Madam Vice President.
Yes, we're going to need to come out of our executive session. Councilman Overton.
I move that we come out of executive session.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey,
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and we are out of executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn the work session?
Madam Vice President,
Yes, Councilman Overton.
move that we adjourn the workshop.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn the workshop. All in favor signify by saying aye.
hey.
Okay, opposed? And we are adjourned. Okay. All right, I call the Meridian City Council regular meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. It is 6:00 p.m. And we will begin this city council meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Councilman Cavanagh,
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts,
Here.
Councilman Taylor,
Here.
Councilman Overton,
Here.
Councilman Whitlock,
Here.
Councilwoman Strader.
Here. Okay, everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I would like to recognize Pastor Vinny Henke for the community invocation. Please join us in prayer or take this as a moment of silent reflection.
Members of the City Council, thank you once again for the opportunity just to come and pray for you. God, I thank you for this evening. I thank you for these servants of our city. I pray tonight as they conduct their business that you might grant them wisdom and discernment, that they might execute judgment with justice and righteousness. Father, we pray for our city, its officials, its staff, its public servants, its teachers, and its families. We ask that we might be a lighthouse in the Treasure Valley. We ask that we might be a city in which neighbors love one another, demonstrate kindness and hospitality and generosity to all who would cross our path. And we ask these things in the name of Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay. With that, we will move on to adoption of the agenda.
Madam Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
we have one change to the agenda. We need to vacate the executive session at the end. And outside of that change, I move that we adopt the agenda as published.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and the agenda is agreed to. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone signed up under public forum?
Madam Vice President, yes, Pastor Henke speaking about a Kleiner Park event.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pastor Henke. You will be recognized for up to 3 minutes. You could please state your name and address for the record as well.
Yeah, my name is Vinny Henke. We reside at 4034 North Breeze Creek Place in Meridian. I just want to thank the mayor and the staff and the Parks Department for the event at Kleiner Park this last weekend, the Arts Festival. My family and I got to participate in the chalk art competition with my 2 teenage daughters. And we just had a great time. And so just wanted to express our thanks and enjoyment of the work that the city does. And we love living here. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep, my pleasure.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, and Mr. Clerk, was there anyone else signed up?
Madam Vice President, that was everyone.
Okay, fantastic. With that, we will move on to our resolutions. First, we have resolution number 25-2537, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026 rate schedule of solid waste collection and disposal services, authorizing the finance department to collect such fees and providing an effective date. All right. Okay, Council,
Madam Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
I move that we approve Resolution 25-2537.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 25-2537. Is there any discussion? Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and, do we need a roll call vote on this?
Madam Vice President, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm happy to do one.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Cavanagh,
Aye.
Little Roberts, Taylor, Overton,
Aye.
Strader,
Aye.
Whitlock.
Okay, all ayes, the motion carries and resolution 25-2537 is adopted. With that, we will move on to our action items this evening. Just to preview, I think for members of the public, on item 2, the applicant has requested a remand to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And on item 3, the applicant is requesting a continuance. So I just wanted to let everybody know that those requests were made. Okay, so with that, I'd like us to go ahead and we'll open the public hearing for item 2, the Farrington Heights subdivision, H 2025-0016, and I will recognize Nick Napoli to kick us off.
Good morning, members of the council. So yes, item 2 for Farrington Heights, the applicant is requesting to be remanded back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission was recommending denial of the project, and the applicant would like to make some changes to the plat to better address the neighbors' concerns before bringing it in front of you guys, and that does require some revised drawings that would do a new staff report for the Planning and Zoning Commission, which would get a new recommendation, which will then be brought before you guys shortly. So I guess, do you have any questions? I'll stand for any questions you guys have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick. City Council, any questions?
Seems appropriate.
Okay. I have a question. I think it's more of a legal question, but do we need to keep our public hearing open to go ahead and remand this back? I guess a question for legal counsel, if Emily has a thought.
Madam Hassan? Yes, Madam Vice President, members of council, the public hearing would be closed and then the Planning and Zoning Commission would take it from there.
Okay. All right, fantastic. I think we understand the order of operations that we're going in. All right, council.
Madam Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
I move that we close the public hearing for Farrington Heights subdivision H 2025-0016.
Okay, I have a motion, a second to close the public hearing on item 2. Is there any discussion? Okay. All right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it and the public hearing is closed. Councilman Overton.
Madam Vice President, I move that we remand Farrington Heights subdivision H 2025-0016 back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The applicant needs to address concerns of neighbors and being revised. It will come back to the City Council at a future date, undetermined at this time.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to remand H 2025-0016 back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I will ask the clerk to call roll on that vote.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts, Taylor, Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
Okay, all ayes and the motion carries, and that item has been remanded back to Planning and Zoning. With that, we will move on to item 3, a public hearing for Latitude 43 subdivision, H 2024-0059. We'll go ahead and turn this over to Nick again for staff comments.
Madam Vice President, members of the council. So yes, Latitude 43 is requesting a continuance and also requires a continuance. They are requesting it to be October 14th in order to allow for additional time to obtain information resolving traffic circulation issues in the area. So I'll stand for any questions you guys have.
Okay. A quick question. It sounds like this is actually a required continuance. Is that accurate just in terms of noticing and requirements being met for a public hearing?
Madam Vice President, that is correct.
Okay. So with that, I would love to entertain a motion for continuance.
Madam Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
I move that we continue Latitude 43 subdivision project H 2024-0059 until October 14th.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion, a second to continue item 3 to October 14th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and the item is continued. With that, we will move on to future meeting topics. Does anyone have a future meeting topic that they'd like to propose? Council President Cavanagh, we don't want to leave you out since you're virtual.
I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right, not a lot tonight. So with that, we vacated our executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Madam Vice President,
Councilman Overton.
move that we adjourn.
Okay, great. I have a motion, a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey,
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and we are adjourned. Have a
good
nice
job,
evening.
Council Vice President. Exceptional job. Appreciate you holding the fort.